It was more like a spiritual house with blood stains, probably from sacrificed animal on some parts of the walls, with some bizarre sculpture work around the compound. These sculpture work were equally stained in animal blood, with smoke coming out from the clay pot in strategic place in the compound. Julius was afraid. Akin noticed his apprehension and he told him there was nothing for him to be worried about. Anyway, Julius sat and waited, hoping for the best. While they were awaiting the prophet's arrival, a group of other young men also drove into the compound. They too had come to pay the prophet a visit, with the same goal in mind, for their client to pay them without any obstruction whatsoever. After about 30 minutes of waiting, the prophet came out to meet with them. He was a chubby man with pot belly, dressed in red and black attire. He was holding a scepter in one of his hands and a live bird in the other hand. They all arose and bowed to greet him. The prophet signaled for them to follow him, and they all did. They went straight to the river bank, where he instructed them to pull off their clothes, remaining only their boxers. They took water with buckets from the river. The prophet prayed on the water while throwing some herbs into their water, along with some native chalk and incense. That done, he told them to start bathing with the water. While they were bathing, the prophet took out naira notes and started spraying the money into the river while shouting in some strange language. After that, the prophet brought out some live goats, one for each of them. He started speaking in some strange language while touching their forehead and rubbing it on the goats. After that, he instructed them to throw the goats into the river. Julius felt very uneasy. He knew everything was wrong. He thought Akim was taking him to a church for prayers, but here they were, in a shrine, indulging in some fetish practices. But then, even though he was uneasy, the halo of riches and the promise of great wealth overshadowed any iota of fear in his mind. And together with everyone else, Julius threw his goats into the river. But then, this was when something strange happened. Even though goats can swim, all their goats started sinking to the bottom of the river, one after the other. It was as if a strange force was pulling the goats down into the river depths. The prophet smiled in self-contentment. Everyone was very happy and jubilant, except for Julius, who could not really understand why the goats were sinking to the bottom of the river. But then, while this jubilation was ongoing, everyone could not help but notice something strange about the goat Julius threw into the river. It was swimming away. It did not sink along with the rest of the goats, much to the surprise of everyone. Even the prophet was dumbfounded. His joy dropped in great surprise. This was the first time this was happening. Anything that is thrown into the river after the ritual must be taken. Julius was confused. He wondered what the commotion was all about. Some of the other boys started urging him to jump into the river and grab the goat before he gets away, so that the prophet could repeat the prayers for him and so that his goat would sink to the bottom of the river along with the rest goats. But Julius was terrified. He refused bluntly because he did not know how to swim. Anyway, the goats swim off to the other side of the river, and they all soon returned back to the prophet's shrine. All this while, Julius never knew how lucky he was. If he had jumped into that river to grab the goat, the deity in the river would have taken him immediately, and his body would have been lost forever. Well, they soon returned back from the prophet's place. The very next day, something strange started happening in Akin's house. Akin received a terrible news from home. His mother had just died mysteriously last night in her sleep, even though she did not show any sign of illness the previous day. Julius was there when the call came in. he was surprised that Akin was very calm. He did not roll on the ground and weep like someone who had lost such a close relation. He opened a bottle of wine and started sipping it quietly, much to the dismay of Julius. But then, to Julius' surprise, all the other boys started receiving calls from home. They had each lost a very close and important family member. And just like Akin, they did not cry. Some even had a look of contentment and great expectation on their face. They all joined Akin in the living room and started drinking and smoking while talking in low tones. Judah saw all that was happening, and it began to dawn on him that the sacrifices of goats they did the previous day was not ordinary. The spirits of their loved ones have been invoked into these goats, and the death of these goats marked a sure end for each of their relatives. Julius was terrified, even though he was ready to do anything to make money. The thought of using his relative for money ritual sent a cold shiver down his spine. He went into his bedroom and with shaking hands and tears welling up in his eyes, he dialed his mother's telephone line for the first time in months to see if she was still breathing.